Hi, everyone. Welcome to Freebird Spirit YouTube channel. Thank you for swinging by and hanging out and joining us for this conversation, this continued conversation. And I feel like Chrys, is this number 6?
7.
7. Conversation 7. So welcome aboard. If you're new, go back and catch the other conversations to catch up and be a part of it. And if you have been with us all along, thank you. And thank you for your amazing contributions to the conversation. Aren't the comments just amazing, Chrys? It just blows my mind.
I feel like I want to print them all out and just put them in a separate file somewhere because they're just so beautiful.
Well, I think that we should. I mean,
yeah,
to add
we could make a set of cards or something.
There you go. Always think. So
the awakening cards, yes.
The awakening cards, yeah. So again, welcome to the awakening conversation. And today we're continuing in regards to what we coined as the death sentence, receiving death sentences, and they come in different ways. There's a spectrum of this as well. And last conversation, I talked about my story and my son's story of receiving a diagnosis, a brain tumor diagnosis, and then that journey, but receiving that death sentence and what it was like for me. I didn't speak for Ben. I spoke from my side and kind of what I did with that sentence in my own life, and taking inventory and changing and how it spurred me into new life and new choices in my life. So that was our last conversation, and this week we're talking, and Chrys is going to talk about her journey from her perspective. And so her perspective would be more from what Ben's perspective, and I feel like there's a lot of us here who have been given diagnoses such as cancer, and so you may relate to this story. But Chrys, let's go kind of back to that beginning when you were surrounded with you had your sister and your partner and the doctor came in and gave you a diagnosis. Let's start from there.
I thought I was going in the hospital for a hysterectomy. I had some symptoms that I thought were like a bladder infection or something. Nobody could really diagnose it. And then one doctor finally said, let's go for an MRI. So I went for an MRI. So that was November 12th. And don't ask me why I know these dates, because I know them like they're engraved on me. But so the doctor called and said, you need to get an oncologist right away. I was like, okay, what everybody's worst fear is. And they, and then I got an appointment, and the first time I saw the oncologist was December 12th. And what was in the backdrop of all this was that my heart daughter's wedding was in October, and I was too sick to go. And that was really disappointing. And so somehow this was like more fallout from all of that. Anyway, I saw the doctor, and she said, well, we need to go and do the work, and we're going to do a hysterectomy. And I was so concerned about getting back to work. I was like, when can I go back to work? She said, well, if all goes well, she said, you'll be able to go back February 1st. Surgery was January 9th. And I was like, oh, okay, good. All right. So it'll be all taken care of. So I went in on January 9th, and my sister and former partner were there, and this team of sort of nurses who are highly trained hit people, came in with all their needles and were there for like that long. And then this woman came up to me. I forgot about this part. I don't think I told you this. The night before I got operated on, I had a dream that I was walking along with a woman, a very dark-skinned woman I thought was African. And we were talking about the surgery and what was going to happen. And I didn't think much of it. You know, that's sort of a typical dream for me. And so these women came in, they did their thing, and then in walks an African woman. And she says, I'm working with Dr. Agarwal, and I'm going to be with you during your surgery. And I just wanted to meet you. And I'm like, I already met you. So she left. You know, they did tell me that if there were complications, that, you know, that's always a possibility. And Agarwal's a big robotics specialist. So I thought, okay, so, you know, we'll see how that goes. So I don't remember much after that. And now I'm going to tell you what I heard from Lori and Eileen, which was that they had given me some sort of sedative. I don't think it was a heavy duty one when those women came in at that time. And then Agarwal started the process, the surgery, and quickly called an anesthesiologist in. So they rushed one in, and then they did an open incision, you know, from the top of my chest all the way to the bottom. And they found 5 tumors and did a hysterectomy and removed 5 tumors. So when I woke up, I was in a very dark room. I don't remember very much. I mean, I was going in and out of what I think was the other side. I was going in and out a lot. And they were showing me all sorts of images of what looked to me like past lives, like they had them all lined up. So I had all of that. But I came out and somebody, and I think it was the doctor, said, you know, the headline, we've removed 5 tumors. You have stage 3C ovarian cancer. And that was pretty much it, you know. The only thing I remembered, I think I told you about, was that I started rubbing the doctor's wrist. I was doing this to her wrist. And she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to figure out how old you are. Like she's a tree. Like she's a tree. Weird, kind of. She said, you can't believe the things people do to me after they wake up. I was like, okay. So then I am still unclear who actually opened it up more. My poor sister, my mom had died of leukemia in 2015, and Lori was really her primary person. And when you look at the pictures of me in that hospital bed, I look just like my mother. So I'm sure that was tough. But somebody told me more details, not much. And then I can't remember how long it went by, but in the middle of the night, the same African woman showed up. And she came and she stood at the end of my bed. And she said, I have no reason to be here. I'm not here on official business. But I've been struggling trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. You know, what specialty I want to go into. And when you told me you'd had this dream, I knew that you had been sent to me to help me figure it out. And now I know. And I was like, wow. Yeah, you know, you said about what it's like to be on the inside of this. I knew that I was not here anymore. Something really big had shifted, and I was not in this dimension anymore. It was very clear, but very isolating. I didn't know what to make of it. It sort of defied thought, you know. It just we don't have something to draw on for that. You can try, you know. Lots of people like to say, "Oh, look at the Bible." I'll tell you, no, it's not here. So I don't know how long went by. that had happened. My mom's face came right in. I mean, her whole face was in front of me. So there was all that, and I was like experiencing it, but no words, actually really no thoughts other than what's happening. It was shock, really, probably more than anything. And I was on a lot of anesthesia. So at some point, I had to get up. They wanted me to get up. So I went to get up, and she said, you have to make a decision. And I said, what? And she said, you have to decide if you want to live. And I just sat there, and I remember saying, not if it's like this, I don't want to live. I don't want to stay. I have no reason to stay. I don't want to stay. And she said, you've got to choose. You've got to choose, and you got to choose now. You're going to get up, you're going to push forward, or you're not. And I said, sure, okay. I was like very passive about it. Like, yeah, all right, I'm here. Okay. And then it becomes that cliche. You put one foot in front of the other.
Mm.
But I didn't know what this was going to mean. I mean, what's ovarian cancer? What's 3C? What is any of this?
Right.
It was totally, I can only imagine Ben hearing, what you've got, and you go, it means nothing to me. What is that? What does that mean? What's going to happen? Well, as the days unfolded, and my middle name is Research. So, but I didn't have a computer. But I did have Mary Magdalene revealed in my hand, and I never let go of it. I held it the entire time I was in the hospital, which was a week. I went home for 24 hours. I was so dehydrated, they rushed me back in again. This time, I met Dr. Agarwal's colleague, Dr. Cunningham, who's an older woman. Agarwal's in her 40s. So Mary Cunningham was there, and she was overseeing stuff, and really kind, just really kind, but also funny. Clearly a seasoned woman, a professional woman who's been through the mill in terms of breaking the mold around being one of the few women who's a gynecologist, a gynecological oncologist. So I said to her, so explain to me what 3C means. If they take out all the tumors, do I still have cancer? She said, yes. And I said, so what's 3C? I said, so when they take out all the tumors, is it no longer stage 3C? And she said, no. And then she explains to me. I mean, who explained any of this to any of us?
Right.
I didn't know. She said, no, it's an international database. They put everybody's data into this database, the results of the biopsy, all that stuff, age, weight, the whole 9 yards, all from all over the world. And it comes out to be a mean, an average, right? And so the average is, she said, the average that yours had was, the average that you had was that it's pretty much a metastasized ovarian cancer, but it's confined to your abdomen. So that was like, oh, okay. And I'm still walking around like, okay, well, it's out, right? So then the data starts coming in. Then everybody's doing their research and everybody's talking to me, but most people are not talking to me. Most people are just looking at me. And people are showing up who I haven't seen in ages. I remember one friend of mine came around the corner of the room and looked in, and I hadn't seen her in months. And I was like, what are you doing here? She was just saying hi and left. And she, it's not somebody who can walk very easily. So it was that kind of, and I would imagine that's similar to what you guys went through. And people just show up. It's like, why is this happening? But the room is still dark. I'm having a great time with the nurses. I was having a great time with the nurses. We were playing a lot and joking, and I'm asking about families. And one woman's singing Let It Go. And I said, why are you singing Let It Go? And she said, because my 3-year-old knows all the lyrics. And so we sing together. And so, then we were singing, and then they got me a special room. And, it was that kind of, boosting kind of experience. But,
nurses are so amazing.
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 I just love them. Yeah. So they're really terrific.
And
And they really do the work.
they do.
Yeah. So, you asked about the death sentence, and it really wasn't, it wasn't like your son. It wasn't me saying, so am I going to die? I didn't say that. And I didn't know enough about it, but it was so apparent to me that something big had happened. People were calling me from work and saying, don't worry about a thing. We've got everything taken care of. We'll cover for you. And I'm like, okay. Kristen called me and she said, we're going to do this with your courses. Just say yes. I said, okay, yes. And yeah, it was just, yeah, I'm in my feelings at the moment. It's really tough because it's like you walked into a wall and you didn't know what hit you.
Right. And I think we talked about this a little bit, Chris, in that when your body no longer is functioning like we usually don't have to think about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't really think about it. We just kind of wake up, we're still breathing, we don't think about how we're breathing or our heart beating. Is it beating? You know what I mean? We usually just do our thing. And then all of a sudden your body defies you like this. And that in itself is kind of it gives you a pause in that, oh, this is an ending. That's, and your relationship with your body completely changed. Yeah. Right.
I didn't really know it was an ending. I didn't really know that. I knew something big, but I didn't know the size of it. The size of it has been massive. And it's daily. It's not just what happened at the beginning, although that was the most shocking. 4 weeks later, after having a port put in, so I had to go back in and have a port put in, and then they were going to give me begin chemotherapy, chemo infusions. Now remember, it's 2020. Yes, this is January 9th, 2020. COVID starts in March. So at the beginning, my sister could go with me to get the infusions. So she went with me for the first one. And the nurse says to me, I'm going to give you this, you're going to have this drug and this drug together. And we're going to also give you anti-nausea and a steroid. And, but I'm going to be right here. I'm going to be right here. And I said, okay. And she said, so I'm going to wait 15 minutes. So you feel anything. If you feel anything, you say something. I'm like, what the frick is she talking about?
Yeah.
So Ray's sitting next to me, and when the two of us are talking, and she puts all this stuff on, and all of a sudden I felt like a volcano was emerging in my body. And it was like, what? And it went right from the core right straight up, and I felt like my head was going to blow off my shoulders. And I went, I'm feeling something, and all of a sudden there were probably, I don't know, probably about 12 nurses standing in front of me, and they're pumping me with epinephrine, and I was having anaphylaxis.
Oh.
And I was like saying, oh my God, I don't want to die in front of my sister. It was all I could think of. I don't want this to happen. I don't want her to go through this. And so they brought me out of it. But, and then they called Agarwal and they said, we can't give her this. She just went into anaphylaxis. And she said, we'll give her a smaller dose. And they said, no. So I went home, and they changed the dosage. They changed the stuff, and I went back in. So I started going every week. Right. And when you're there, that's a whole other layer. And you know this really well because you've worked in those settings, as well as going through it with your son and being sick yourself. So, all of a sudden you're taking in everything around you. And of course, I'm a sociologist, so that's sometimes a curse. And so I'm asking people their questions, like, how long have you been sick, and where do you live, and do you have kids? And, I'm doing all that stuff. And I'm learning a lot, but I'm also feeling a lot, and as I went through each week, I was feeling more and more. Now the research is out. Now the researcher came alive, and now I see the numbers. 39% survived past 5 years.
Mm.
And I'm going, what? What? And then you have the process of having to integrate that. How do you integrate that? Where do you put that? You know, it's like, and I remember going for a walk with my sister and she's saying, this is really bad news. And I said, no, it's an average. Thank you, Dr. Cunningham. This is an average. You know, they don't know me. They don't know us. They don't know our family stories. They don't know any of this stuff. So we have to sort of say, there's your data. Here's who I am. And we have to figure that out. And of course, what I didn't know, and this is what you and I've talked about a lot, which is I didn't know that my whole life came to an end.
Mhm.
That everything stopped and everything I was doing came to an end. The flip side of that was I never knew how many people cared.
Mm.
So I had a stack of cards like this, and I'm like, who are these? What? People care? You know, and then you realize how much we integrate. I think I heard Brene Brown talking about this the other day. You know, that sense of we take in these messages that we're not okay and we're not loved. And what you really find out in those moments is like, whoa, you matter. Who knew you mattered? You know, it's that kind of, it was really
Isn't it? It's just so sad. It's amazing. It is mind blowing when that happens, and you're like, whoa, I guess I am loved and cherished, and wow, this is mind blowing. But isn't it sad on the other hand that we have taken in those messages in the first place, that
Well, that
we
we're
are
giving them.
not, and no one cares? And
Yeah.
I know that's what the world gives us every day. But
I
yeah,
know, it always reminds me of the Four Agreements, you know, this book that's a Toltec story. I usually have students read it for conflict. I can't remember what the guy's last name is. I always forget. But it's really a Toltec story. And one of the messages that we get these sort of poison arrows as children, and then we absorb them. And what we have to learn is to not take things personally, that it's really not about you. It's really about them. But they give you the stuff that you take in.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so yeah, so that was the beginning, really. I know there's tons here, but I'm trying to figure out what's useful.
Yeah, so then you were faced with a date. 5
Well,
years,
yeah,
right? Even though you didn't accept it, right?
no, but yeah, well, yeah, then I didn't really get the death sentence until the following year.
Okay.
But in September, now we've got January, and now we're in September, 3 lymph nodes light up.
Mm.
And the doctor's like, looks shocked, and she says, we didn't expect it to recur this fast. So now we're starting to move in the big guns, you know, we're going to start shifting. So what she did was then changed me to 2 different chemotherapies, and one of them was too toxic for me, and I went into major organ failure the following February, March. And that was the other exit point that I didn't take. And you know, those are moments when you're sort of, it's almost like being in training, you know, when you were talking about being a runner, you know, it's that sense of you practice at doing this, and then eventually you hit your stride, right?
Yeah.
And so each one of these things was horrific, but I'm now saying, oh, this is how this works.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. You never know from one minute to the next what's going to come. So I come out of that and I said, I want to go to the Cape. And she says, I think walking in the sand would be good for you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, great. So I go to the Cape. I'm walking in the sand. The 3rd week I'm there, I came in the house and I said, I feel like it just left. I can't put a word. I can't give you a description. It's a feeling. I feel like it just left. Wow. I go back home, and I have an appointment with her again. And I go in, and she's teary. And I'm looking at her like, what's going on? I thought, well, maybe her father's sick. she's from India, you know, she's far away from home. So she says, I want you to start making your end of life plans. That was the death sentence. And she did it 2 times in a row. And I remember coming home after the first one going, what? Because it was so contrary to what I was feeling. She put me on a new chemo, but my numbers went normal right after Cape Cod, and they've been normal since.
So that sand really did its thing.
Well, I call it Cape chemo.
Cape chemo.
Yeah. It goes along with post-traumatic needle disorder, which is another piece I also have. But yeah, so but that was the moment. You know, I looked at my former partner in that moment and went, oh, she's not going to stay for this. She's not going to stay for this. But I also was mad. I got angry.
Yeah.
And I got up and I went to the Guitar Center and I got myself a new guitar. Go figure.
That.
Go figure. I went in and I got myself an electric guitar. And
electric.
Yeah, well, I was ready to play some really hard rock. And so she took a picture of me coming in the side porch carrying the new guitar. And boy, you see the attitude. It's like, don't fuck with me. Just get away. I was like, no. And so that's really the moment. You know, there's a buildup, and somewhere there's this sort of echo all the time of, are you really leaving? But the piece about the death sentence is that with this kind of thing, and I have 2 neighbors who are in a similar situation. I told you, I think, about Yvonne. She has stage 4 breast cancer. And it's metastasized a lot. And she's been fighting really hard, and she's been in it for 10 years. And word on the street this week is that she's not doing great. And there's another woman in the next block who has ovarian cancer, stage 4, 10 years in. You know, had 1 recurrence. Still, she's working, she's doing stuff. So, you know, you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same as what Ben went through, in the sense that, you know, his was so overdetermined.
Yeah.
You know, this was more like you're walking around with a ticking time bomb. You just don't know what it's going to be again.
But it's still a ticking time bomb that you know is there.
Yeah.
So it does separate you into a new realm there. And I want to take this into the knowledge that you are not in this fully in this dimension since this happened. And that's a huge part. And I want to talk about it just a minute before I hand it back here. I have seen this, Chrys, across the board when people get these diagnoses that are just mind-blowing to the rest of us. We're like, oh my gosh, and we all go into the terror, and we're like, oh my, you know, like, and like how are they handling it? And so those of us on the outside trying to figure out, how can I be there for that person? Or, you know, you're getting all these cards and people want to be a part of that because it just, for them, it's like, that is the most terrifying thing ever. But I truly have seen across the board this different dimension that you're talking about, that all of a sudden you're looking at this person that you've known forever, and they're like handling this so well. And they're like, it's okay, you know, and they're taking care of everyone around them, and they're just loving and doing the thing. And I know that they also have moments, but I'm telling you, I thought in my mind that they are part already on the other side. That as soon as they get that diagnosis, they get assistance from the other side, where part of them is already there. And that's how they do it. And so when you said that, I was just like, bam, that's it.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Not fully in this dimension.
Well, you said it to me. I'm not the same person I was before.
Right.
You know, and you know, the funny thing is that people say all the time, you've got so much courage. It's really not courage. It's really not. least to me, it's not, here I was taking your class and I took a break to go walk my dog and fell and broke my shoulder. It's like, you don't know from one day to the next what's going to invite itself in for a moment. But there are times when you struggle to try and find, what's this for? What's it about? And I've done enough spiritual work to, prior to that, I was like, okay, what's the plan here? What's the contract? Some would say, what am I supposed to do with
Yeah.
it? And you have no idea. You have none. You sit there and you sort of try and process it. Like, what is it? Now I can tell you better. Now I'm almost 3 years in, and now I can tell you better, because I'm not the same person. You said to me once, you died. It's like, yeah, I did. And I had exit points that I didn't take. One person said to me, why didn't you take that? And I'm like, I wasn't ready. I wasn't done. And then a couple of mediums have said to me, they're working with you and they're expecting you to finish this work because you started it on the other side doing it. I'm like, uh-huh. And then you start to see some of it materialize. And it materializes in ways you don't expect. And this as well as I do. This sense of, why did I get connected to Debbie? What's going on here? What's, various things, the synchronicities abound. I'm sitting in the living room. This was last year. And yeah, now that you just said that, this really resonates it. But I'm sitting in the living room and Eileen's sitting over on the couch on the opposite side of the room, and I'm sitting in the chair, and simultaneously we both whip around and look the other direction. And I said, did you see that? And she said, yes. I said, what was it? She said, a brown cloud. And I went, no, I saw a woman. She had her hair in pin curls. She was carrying a cup of tea in her right hand. She had her night clothes on, and she was walking into the kitchen. I saw her. I was like, I just saw a spirit. What? So, but that stuff kept happening. It kept happening. A ship went over the house. I went out to walk the dog, and this giant triangular ship making no noise is flying over my head slowly. And I'm going, okay, so am I hallucinating? But I knew very well, you just stay really calm, because somehow as you go through this, there's a calmness that sets in. And it's, you get afraid. I mean, when they go to take blood, because I'm already really over the top with around needles, but, you just sort of put one foot in front of the other. I mean, I get really sick of that phrase, but it's the reality. But yes, stuff has opened up in a really big way. And
yeah, and I think, when people say, you're so courageous, you haven't chosen this. So
no,
it's not something you're
not on this
choosing.
side,
You
anyway.
didn't go into battle going, I'm going into battle now because I'm choosing this. You know what I mean? So that's when someone does that, they're like, it would be courageous if you could say to someone, I'm going to take your cancer from you and carry it for you. Okay. That would be courageous, right? Because you're choosing that. But when you're living it, I think what you're describing here is you're doing that one step at a time, and you're honoring yourself through the process. That is beautiful. That is love. And not only that, you are this whole piece of the other dimension, living here and there, all that whole new dimensional living piece to it as well. You really have painted that picture so well for us on that. Do you feel that you have a better view now, like a view of life, a view of others, is your view better?
Oh, better.
I mean, am I
It's-
saying that right?
It's more, it's not that you're not saying it right. I haven't really thought about it quite like that.
Is it clearer? Is your
I'm way less judgmental than I
okay?
used to be. Not that I was ever really judgmental, but no more than the average person. But but now when I look at people and I see them going through stuff, I'm calm.
You're a sociologist. You're like the least judgmental person on the planet. That's a funny one to use.
Well, I have moments, I get pissed off at a colleague, it's like,
Oh yeah.
what the hell are you thinking? It's,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it was no, I never really was very, but at any rate, I mean, part of being an educator, if you really care about education, is that you care about who's sitting in front of you,
Mhm.
and they all have stories and they all have struggles. Some are huge and some are not, but and so you learn, you learn how to do those things, but mostly you learn how to trust yourself better. No, I think what's different. Oh, there's a lot of stuff that's different. You already know this, but they don't. So, yeah. When more people come to me now to tell me their struggles than ever before, and mostly I think because I've been in a hard place. So that's one layer. But there's another layer here. I was talking about this earlier today. There's also a way in which everybody disappears. When you go into remission, suddenly everybody's like, "Oh, okay, she's okay now.
She's good now."
They're gone. It's like, where'd they all go? Then the part that has been bothering me more lately is that when I sit with people, I did over the weekend, I get ignored. Nobody's really interested in anything. And, you sort of go, oh, this is different. But I don't quite know what that is to make of that yet. I have a feeling part of it is we don't really want to be too close to you because you're going to leave. I don't know how much of that is there.
Right, that PTSD.
Yeah. Well, I've got PTSD bad, but yeah.
Yeah, but when you get through that with someone that you love and care for, and they're on this end of it, it's that unconscious piece of, okay, I need to keep my heart safe now because I can't step back into that because I almost lost her. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that makes sense. It's interesting.
Well, that's interesting that you said that, because when you say that, it's coming from the other side of that experience.
It is the other side. Yeah.
And I don't have that to draw on. So that's helpful. But yeah, I really see people now as doing their work. I don't see them as having, one of the neighbors came over and was telling me some horror stories about things that are happening to her. And I stay calm and I give her love. Well, I said this to you. I'm in love with everybody right now. Just there. It's just like, there are mornings when I get up and it's like, I'm in love today. Who am I in love with? Oh, everybody. It's like, okay. But it's a feeling. And that's when you realize that this thing we call in love is totally about feeling the bliss of being alive.
Ooh.
And just being connected. You can feel it when you're looking at the trees blowing in the wind. And I call that my waves, because I sit out on the back and I watch the trees blow. And, it's like I'm taking the time to do that. And, it's just, life is much more alive.
Yeah.
You're more alive. But yeah, I've changed a lot.
Your view has changed. You're better able to view. I mean, your view has changed. I'm losing the words on that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we've talked a few times. Yeah.
So you're describing someone so when we pass over, we do our life review. You did your life review here, and you've made changes here, and now you are in love with everyone. And you know what I mean? You've done that. You've done that life review. And you've taken that inventory and you've made changes in your life.
Well, I mentioned in one of the other talks we had about the Ho'oponopono, and part of that, and Darlene has helped me with that a lot, because she's saying you need to constantly say it, constantly. Don't think just because you said it once it's enough. But it's really a way to do your life review and to say to anyone who you've hurt, anything you screwed up on, somebody who you didn't love enough, that kind of stuff. I'm really sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really sorry. And I was here trying to do what I thought I was supposed to do, and I'm learning, and I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. I love you, and thank you for being in my life. And then you realize that all the things you thought of in the various passages you went through were here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that it all comes to a head in a way. It all comes in sort of going, oh, okay. And that's what we're all doing. We're all having those experiences. We all walk past somebody, we all have moments of not listening well. We all have moments of saying, maybe this isn't the right relationship for me. We all have all of that stuff, but we make it bigger than it is. You know what I mean? We make it catastrophic. We don't see it as, some of us see it, but we typically try and get past it, trying to get out of the hurt. I remember once years ago saying to a therapist, how bad I felt about someone feeling, that I felt guilty about having hurt someone. And she said, "Who are you to play God?" And I said, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Why would you rob her of that opportunity to grow?" And I was like, I never thought of being hurt as growing, but of course, that's when you get the choice. You get to choose, So Ben passes, right? You have to go through your stages. You have to choose. You have in front of you the choice.
Many
Do I
choices.
stay on this path, or do I pick a different one? Do I do something that's going to give me more life? Honor him more, that kind of stuff, instead of, oh, how could you do this? How could you leave? How could God do, that kind of stuff? You already said this, you went in a different direction. And that's what I think is different now, is that I listen to people's stories, I listen to their stuff, and I don't have the same perspective at all. You're on your own path. You got to do your own work. You got to figure it out. And we're all leaving. And that's the part I think that we pretend not to own.
Exactly. Until we get a sentence. Until we're sentenced.
It's like this, and that's why we call it a death sentence, because somehow we equate it with like capital punishment or something, but it's really, get a grip. This is all temporary. And I said this to you a couple of weeks ago, and you went, yes. I was like, this is a shell.
Yeah. This
isn't the real deal. Every day when I'm struggling to walk, I'm going, okay, the shell's acting up.
Yeah, the shell's
oh, ha. Joke's on you, shell.
Shell, the meat sack is acting up.
Yeah.
The shell is acting up. Yeah. Oh wow. Oh my gosh. So now, as with the listener, with everybody here, the family here listening, if you have not had someone a loved one who has faced a cancer diagnosis or a sentence that we've been talking about, or if you yourself haven't been issued any sentences, any health, extreme health things that have kind of had you face your own timeline, so to speak. Gosh, we would like to challenge you to go ahead and take our stories and kind of do a life inventory or a life review that you're not forced into, and do it now. So you can make those changes while you're here. And so using our stories and your own stories, and if you are someone who have had any diagnosis or any of the things we're talking about, to take that life review here. And so Chrys did that. Chrys took her life review here. And even though she was offered a couple other exit points, she chose to stay and to work and continue to make those changes in her as she moves forward now. Because she did that review, right, Chrys? You did that review. And you're making those changes here and now, instead of waiting till you pass and you're like, oh, I missed that mark. No, you and then when you were offered exit, you're like, no, I'm not done. I did my life review. I am making those changes before I decide to go home.
Yeah, that's good.
And so we all get to do that. We can all do that.
Well, and accepting, I mean, I've said this to you before. I don't know why we don't socialize children differently about these things. We make them afraid of death.
Right.
You know, we tell them stories about death that aren't true. We hang on to stories that were written hundreds of years ago by people who didn't know us, to tell us how we should behave and think, who we should be. And but we aren't socializing our children to say, this is life. You come in, we know you can remember, because they can before they're 5.
Yeah.
We know you can remember where you came from, and you're going to be here for a while, and you know you're going to have these wonderful experiences, and you're going to have some hurts, because that's all part of life. And that's where your lessons are. And we hope that you can talk to us. Can't you imagine?
Yeah.
Okay, you can tell me about the lessons you're learning right now, or what's a struggle, because we both know this is your path. And eventually you're going to go back, and you're going to go on to the next round. And but we all do. So there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, you might go to a funeral and you might see grandma in her casket. You might see that, and you just say, she's not really there. She's really over there. And she's always going to be with you, and she's always going to love you. You know, why don't we do that? What are we so afraid of? I don't get it. I don't. But I think if we accepted that, we wouldn't need ministers or pastors or rabbis.
I mean, we can take some notes from the indigenous people who they from the stories I've read, they knew how to do death.
Right. That's right.
And it wasn't a scary thing. They understood it. But anyway, yeah. So
the other thing is it gives you real compassion toward people who are going through this. That first time I went back in last year, the woman in the bed next to me was given her last rites. And, you know, I had not had that experience, you know, but something said, and of course goes back to the in-love thing. You know, she'd get up with her IV pole and go to the bathroom, and I'd yell out to the nurses, she's doing wheelies again, you know, can you get her? And she'd laugh. I thought, oh, that was so beautiful, you know, she would just laugh. You know, and then she would go back, and I could hear her calling family members and saying, you know, I'm going to be dying soon, and, you know, making arrangements for her disabled son, and, you know, just breaking my heart just broke for her, you know, that. And then I gave her half my flowers, and you'd think I'd given her gold, you know, it just, but it's being able to come out of yourself. You know, I wasn't sitting there saying, oh, poor me. You know, I was saying, how can I be helpful? How can I be present? How can I hold the space for her?
Right.
Yes. How can I do that?
Yeah.
And then the last day before her daughter came to take her home, she turned to me and she said, God sent you to me. And that was just like, what a gift. What a gift that was. And I know it was true. You know, it was one of those, you sit there and go, oh, there's another one. Yeah. There's another. But it also makes, and I think that's the part that when you talk about life review, it also makes you really pay attention. You know, it's like when Darlene said to me last week, you know, you've increased your sense of perception from 90 to 300, you know, because you're not afraid to be present. You learn to be present.
Present.
I learned to get to watch Debbie's eyes and say, oops, she's distracted. Oh, she's feeling pain. I get to see that. But, you know, you also know that you're going to be seen. And so many of us aren't seen.
Right.
So that's another, you know, the gifts just, the gifts just keep rolling in. So, you know, along with the other stuff. So yeah, if you stay with it. Yeah.
So the takeaway today is,
go ahead. The takeaway. Okay?
the
takeaway is we have gifts.
everyone, let's be in love. Let's be in love. And let's honor the space that we're in now. But I love that. Let's just be in love and let's honor the space we're in now. And when you find it difficult to maneuver in that, that's okay. Just step back, take a little inventory, see where the challenge is in, what needs to happen here or there, and step back into that. And just, yeah, I love this, Chrys. And I feel like next week, or next discussion, we're gonna let's dive into popsicles and breaking the mold. And I'm gonna leave that there.
You didn't do that just then.
I just did. We're gonna talk about popsicles and breaking the mold. So we'll see you all then. But thank you for hanging out with us during the conversation, and we can't wait to hear from you. Blessings and love and light. I am in love with you all.
Me too.
Yay. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Debbie.